3 blocks of stone, 23 feet above your head. Each one weighs 800 tons, heavier than a jumbo jet, and they have held that line perfectly level for 2,000 years. Standing beneath them at the Great Wall of Baalbek in eastern Lebanon, the first thing you feel is disbelief. This should not be possible. Run your fingernail along the seam where 2 of them meet. It will not fit. 20 centuries of earthquakes, and the joint is still tighter than a closed book. Now walk half a mile up the hill, into the quarry these came from. Still lying where it was cut is a single block larger than any of the 3. 1,600 tons, the largest stone ever cut by human hands, and whoever made it never moved it. People did this with nothing but rope, timber and muscle, and how they did it slipped straight out of history. The truth turns out to be stranger than the myths, and far more human. Start at the top of the hill. The Temple of Jupiter at Baalbek was the largest temple in the entire Roman Empire. Its columns stood over 60 feet tall, the tallest Rome ever raised. 6 of them are still standing today. But the temple is not the mystery. The mystery is what it stands on. Beneath the columns runs a platform of cut stone, and built into its western wall are 3 blocks known as the Trilithon. Each one weighs around 800 tons. Each one was lifted some 20 feet off the ground, and they were set in a row so precisely that, after 2,000 years, you still cannot fit a blade into the joints. 800 tons is almost impossible to picture. It is more than a fully loaded passenger jet. Rome raised 3 of them, side by side, into the air. These stones are Roman work. The tool marks, the temple above them, and the dating all agree on that. The question at Baalbek was never who the temple belonged to. The question is how. And to understand the how, you have to go to the quarry. Half a mile away, still half buried in the hillside, lie the stones that never made the journey. The most famous is called the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. In Arabic, Hajar al-Hibla. It weighs around 1,000 tons, and for centuries it was believed to be the largest worked stone on Earth. Then, in 2014, archaeologists from the German Archaeological Institute dug beside it. Underneath, they found another block, and this one was bigger, an estimated 1,650 tons, the largest stone ever cut by human hands. Both stones are still attached to the bedrock at one end. Both were shaped, squared, and finished, and both were abandoned. Which raises a very strange question. Why would anyone carve a stone this size if they were not certain they could move it? Here is what we know Rome could do. They were the finest builders of the ancient world. They dragged obelisks weighing hundreds of tons across the Mediterranean. They had cranes, they had capstans, and they had something no earlier people commanded at that scale. Disciplined manpower by the thousand. But moving a block like the Trilithon pushes even Rome to its edge. Engineers estimate it would take dozens of capstans and many hundreds of men hauling in near perfect time to drag a single 800-ton stone even a few feet. It is brutal, it is slow. But for Rome, it is not impossible, and that is exactly what makes the silence so strange. When Rome moved a single obelisk into the heart of a city, they wrote about it. They carved the achievement into stone for everyone to see. Centuries later, when one Roman obelisk was raised again, engineers filled whole books describing how they did it. Baalbek was heavier than any of that. It was the greatest lift the empire ever attempted. And on that, there is nothing, no account, no boast, not one name. The empire that recorded everything fell completely silent on the one thing that should have been impossible to ignore. And that silence is where the other story begins. For a long time, that gap had an answer that had nothing to do with Rome at all. Some researchers have argued that the platform came first, that long before the Romans arrived, an older people, and in the boldest versions a lost civilization, laid down the giant base, and Rome simply built its temple on top. Believers point to the sheer scale of the stones and to the largest blocks sitting at the bottom beneath the Roman work. But when archaeologists go looking for the proof, it is not there. The Trilithon blocks carry Roman tool marks and Roman lifting slots. The pottery and the coins and the foundations are Roman. There is no dated layer anywhere at Baalbek, left by a lost megalithic race. The older builder's story is a powerful one. It is just not what the ground actually says, which leaves the hardest question of all. If it really was Rome, then why does it still feel impossible? Because it very nearly was. That 1,600-ton stone lying finished in the quarry may be the answer hiding in plain sight. It was never moved. It is possible it never could be. It sits there, complete and abandoned, as if the people who cut it were pushing past the limit of what their tools and their bodies could do, and finally reached it. Baalbek is not the work of gods, or visitors from the stars, or a vanished super race. It is something rarer than any of those. It is the mark of ordinary people. Roman engineers and the enslaved and the hired who did the hauling, attempting the physically impossible with rope, wood, and time, and very nearly succeeding. So why is none of it written down? Maybe the records simply did not survive. 2,000 years is a long silence, or maybe to the people who actually did it, it was never a miracle at all. It was just the work. The most astonishing feat of engineering in the ancient world, treated as one more day at the quarry. The giants of Baalbek were never giants. They were us, at the very edge of what we can do, and somehow that is the more unsettling thought. Baalbek's builders moved the heaviest stones on earth, but they were not the first to bend the impossible with nothing but muscle and patience. Half a world away, another people were attempting something just as strange, and I went digging into how they pulled it off. That story is waiting for you right here.